Hey guys, welcome to the Mindful Over Mindless series, and this is Dr. Tamazur. I'm a psychologist. I'm currently running the Calm Planet, and I'm located in Karachi, Pakistan. And here with me is
I'm Shumoel, and I am currently in my master's program studying mental health counseling, and I have also practiced neurofeedback therapy for a year.
So today our topic is
Racism in the United States, and specifically we're going to talk about racism against Desi Americans as well as Desi immigrants.
yeah, and I think I would like to talk about this topic from my perspective of an immigrant. And especially being a Pakistani immigrant, what do you face when you're in the US? And I think Shumoel can highlight that what racism she faced, what kind of racism she faced while growing up. So Shumoel, what do you want to talk about first?
So I definitely want to share my experiences, and I just want to highlight the importance of this is that I feel like although it is racism is talked about, we can never get enough conversation started on it because of the effects that racism can have on a person's mental health. It can have, especially children going through it, can have a huge detrimental effect on their self-esteem, which can then affect their perspective of themselves, as well as their mental health. So, I personally faced a lot of racism growing up. So I grew up in a really white town, and it was just not it for me from when I started kindergarten. Just like the way teachers interacted with me, the way other students interacted with me, it was something that truly made me question my own abilities, and it really had an effect on my confidence, and it lowered my self-esteem from when I was a kid, and that definitely still has its impacts on me as an adult as well, I think.
Would you like to share some experiences, especially that lunchbox one? If you're comfortable with it, I would really want everyone to know about that.
I was in second or third grade, I believe, one of the two, and my grandmother was visiting from Pakistan, and I used to love her cooking. So she used to always cook food for us, desi food for us, and one of my favorite dishes was bhindi with roti, and it was bhindi is okra. And so I used to enjoy eating that, and one day she packed it for me for lunch. So I, like every other kid, had my lunchbox in school, and when I pulled out my food to eat, the lunch monitors came over and said that that wasn't a proper meal, and they took my food and dumped it in the trash can and told me that I had to buy a hot lunch. And at this point, we were already like in the middle of lunch. Those lines were incredibly long. I didn't get to eat lunch that day, and I just remember feeling so upset about it. But I think the worst thing is that I felt ashamed. It's not that I was upset that I didn't get to eat a lunch. It's not that I was upset that my food got thrown out. It was that I was ashamed of what I was eating. It didn't look like what the other kids were eating. They had their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and hot dogs and hamburgers, and I was eating something that wasn't okay to eat. And I remember after that, I didn't take a lunch to school that wasn't a traditional American lunch for so many years to come.
So why was
because
that? Like, why? How could they actually snatch the lunch from the kid? Because I have grown up in Pakistan, and this can't even happen at a Pakistani school. This cannot really, and I just do not understand. Whenever I already know this. You've told me, and I just don't understand that. How could they actually take the lunch away? Was it like that? You weren't allowed to bring lunch from home? Was it that?
No, it wasn't that at all. Home lunches are what a lot of kids bring to school. Some kids get lunches from school, and about half and half. Half the kids get lunches from school, and half the kids bring lunches from home. It
And
was
nobody's
just
else
literally
lunch was snatched except yours?
nope. No one's lunch was ever
So
snatched
did they
except for
ever
mine.
give you a reason, or your parents a reason, that why you weren't allowed to eat a Pakistani dish?
It was never even addressed. It was never addressed. My parents didn't find out about it, that they not even confiscated. They didn't even take the lunch and leave it, because you can't take things from students
Yeah.
and not give, like, you can confiscate things, but you can't throw other people's property away or other students' property away.
So what
And
they
they
do
didn't
with your lunch?
confiscate it. They
Like,
just dumped it in the trash can.
oh, they dumped it?
Yes, they dumped it in the trash can.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they dumped it in the trash right in front of me and made me get in line to get a lunch.
Oh wow, and you couldn't because the lines were too long.
The line was extremely long. I didn't even get to eat lunch that day.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my God, this is, you are an American, right? You identify
Yeah.
more, you identify as an American, right? And
Yeah, I do.
yeah, and you have Pakistani parents, and I think we have talked about this, that have some serious implications in your mental health as well. This, I'm I'm literally, I whenever I listen to this incident, I get stunned again. Like I cannot tell you how much surprised I am right now, and how much angry I am. This makes me angry. If I don't know what I'm gonna do if this happens to my kid. Like I'll be so mad at them. I'll be mad at, I'll be mad at the state. I'll be mad at the school. I'll probably go and pick up a fight. Did you tell your mom, and did you ask her to pick up a fight?
So I didn't. That's the thing, is that I think it's so sad because kids feel so. I remember just feeling helpless in this situation, and I
Yeah.
didn't feel that anything wrong happened because they were lunch monitors. They knew what they were doing. We were supposed to listen to them. We were supposed to
And
respect all
those
of our
lunch
teachers, all of our
monitors are
school
not
monitors.
students, right? These lunch monitors are teachers.
Well, lunch monitors are, it's its own position. So the lunch has its own position. So it has the lunch ladies and the lunch monitors, but they're hired by the school for that job.
Ah.
Yes, yes.
So they're adults.
They're adults. They're adults. They're hall
my
monitors,
God.
lunch monitors. So basically, what they do is they're supposed to ensure the safety of students during lunch hours, during the hall hours, making sure kids aren't doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Yeah.
What other incident you could highlight, or you want to highlight?
This one always. So this one, it's just so crazy to me because of the effect it still has on me and the things that I catch myself saying sometimes about it. So I was in second grade and I had this teacher, and I was obsessed with this teacher. She had black hair. She was white. She was a white lady. She had black hair, and she was pregnant at the time, and she was going to have a kid. And so she really loved students that did well in the class, excelled in the class. Now, I was a student, as my stereotypical standards, as I was a really good student in school. I always did really well in school. I excelled in all my classes. I got good grades. My parents were happy with my progress and everything. So I was always, and I had this need to like impress all my teachers. And for the most part, my teachers liked me. They had nothing. They liked me as a student. I was a good student. I was a quiet student. I did my work. But this one teacher, I don't know why I wanted to impress her so badly, but I did. And she was obsessed with this one girl in my class who was not as good of a student as me, I will say, who had blonde hair. And she was so obsessed with the student, and she would always highlight her work, even though other kids did better in the class than her. Like, teachers highlight work of kids who do exceptional or kids who get really good grades, but she would always highlight her. She would always comment about how pretty her hair is, to the point that this teacher named her daughter after this one.
Oh my God. Okay.
A blonde hair girl. And from that point, I'll still catch myself with saying this to like my friends or something, or if I'm out or something, I'll be like, yeah, no, I never get hit on. I don't have blonde hair, like that. And I catch myself thinking it, and I catch myself saying it. I'm like, although I feel like I have come to terms with a lot of the racism that I dealt with, it'll just hit me once in a while. Like, once in a while we'll be doing something, or something will be happening, and it'll just get to me for some reason. And I just remember once again in that time feeling so ashamed. Like, I just felt like I felt so ashamed during all these times. I was like, why don't I have blonde hair? Why don't I have lighter skin? And it was just something that the blonde hair, it just got to me. And I was just like, so this teacher, I believe that teacher would have liked me if I had blonde hair. And I still to this day think that she probably would have liked me if I had blonde hair. I don't know what her obsession was, what her issues were, but it was something that really affected me as a child. And I want to get your insight on this. So what do you do in that instant where a child is surrounded by people who look different from them? And I feel like this could be applied to many instances. Like, how do you make a child feel like that their qualities are enough, including their physical traits?
I don't think parents should like subject their children to that kind of environment. I honestly think so, and this is my very very personal opinion. I don't want to offend people, but I really want to say that I'll be scared to have kids in US. I'll be, and you know how people say Pakistan is really unsafe. Pakistan is and Pakistan is unsafe. Like that's not that's not a news. It is unsafe, but honestly, I would be scared to have my kids grow up in US because I know all these horror stories that you've told me. So yeah, I mean, like if I would say that send your kids to a multicultural school where there are people of color, where there are kids of color, so the kid can actually relate. Because kids can be really mean. They can be really mean. I don't know why, but they can be really mean to the people who do not look like to the kids who do not look like them, and especially when it comes to but I do think that you can build some resilience into your kids, and one way to build the resilience in your kid is obviously to provide a very compassionate and friendly environment to your kid, so your kid can come home and tell their horror stories. So if your kid can come home and explain and discuss with you that this happened, like my teacher did that, so maybe if you can have a friendly discussion around that your teacher is probably insane. I'm so sorry to say that, but she is, right? And she's probably
I mean,
insane.
it's crazy. Thinking back, it's crazy. She was so obsessed with a student that
she has some psychological issues, and she's being obsessed, and teachers aren't supposed to show favoritism, right? They aren't, and that is actually against school rules and against their ethics, their professional ethics. So yeah, if you could have that discussion, this is unethical. The teacher shouldn't do that. And if the kid is discussing with the parent, then the parent can go and report as well. And then that's how you can kind of empower your kid, like let them in the loop, like what, I did report that because this is a favoritism, that's high level of favoritism, that's unethical, and students are getting to know about this, so you kind of report that, and you tell your kid, update your kid about that, so that is empowering your kid. So obviously creating a compassionate environment at home, b creating a space where they can truly come and discuss their issues, and see empowering them through different means. I really liked what Deepak Chopra said to his kid when his kid came crying home. If you guys don't know Deepak Chopra, just Google him. He's a huge he's a medical doctor, and then he's now a motivational speaker. He's a writer, and he has done a lot of research in health psychology and neurophysiology, neuropsychology. I'm sorry. So his kid came running back to home, and because some other kids said something about his color, and when he discussed it with Deepak Chopra, he said that that kid is projecting his own insecurities on you, and I know it's not that the child would understand that concept at such a young age, but they would at least understand the concept that the problem is not within them. The problem is with the other person, right? Who's projecting that insecurity. So the problem lies there. The problem is with the teacher. The problem is the person who's dumping the lunch. The problem is with the kid who's bullying you. The problem is not within you. So yeah, those could be some of the methods to develop some resilience in kids.
Yeah, and I think that what a barrier that I would hope that we are able to break is this idea that American schools are perfect for immigrants, for Desi parents. I remember, like, I just know from hearing talk that, like, from hearing talks of, like, aunties and uncles, or from hearing the elders talk, that they just have this perception that, oh, we're going to go to America, or we're going to go to Canada, and our kids will be safer, like people who immigrate from Pakistan. And I feel like now I've sat in on those adult conversations where they talk about the schools being safe, the environment being safe, it being welcoming, it being a good place, it being a place where you can rely on teachers and like the authorities that they have. And I want to break that barrier for parents, that a lot of times it is those adults that have those discriminatory thoughts, and it is those adults that are also partaking in bullying your child and showing racism, and it's not always perfect. And it's like, I think that that's something that should be addressed, or that's something that immigrant parents should know, that that's not the case. And I remember this one instant, we were at one of Mamu's friends' house, and the adults were talking about how good the schools are. And I just remember this one girl, she was younger than me. I was about 18, 19, and she had to have been like 13, 14 in middle school, and she just started laughing. Like, she literally started laughing.
Yeah.
And her and I, like, had this look with each other, and we were laughing about it, and they just completely ignored it. And we were like, yeah, the schools are so much better. And it's just like, I don't know what it is that kids aren't able to either share that, or parents aren't able to understand that. Like, I think it's important to always go into that, the school system and the environment, being aware of those issues and being aware that there can be so many problems your child could be dealing with. And irregardless of what country you move to, where you go, your child will face discrimination or racism or whatever the issues may be. It doesn't matter where you go. It's still something that can occur, and it doesn't, just because you're in America or just because you're in Canada, doesn't make the education system perfect. Sure, there may be some great opportunities there that the adults see, maybe that they see that makes them think that way, but it's not the case at all.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When I was doing my master's in Connecticut, and I made a lot of first generation immigrants friends, and one thing I heard a lot was why these Pakistani girls are so confident. How you girls are so confident? How you girls? And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't understand that initially, but then I got it. Like, when I talked to you and I talked to other immigrants, and I was like, oh my God. Because, they were really bullied. The first generation immigrants get really bullied in school. And that's why they kind of lack that confidence. And then they question mark. So when they see people, this is such an interesting concept. And, I'm so glad we are having this conversation, because, when they see a Desi girl as confident as I am, or any other Pakistani or Indian girl or Bangladeshi girl is, who has brought up in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India, with obviously loving and compassionate parents, they're surprised. Because, when I was growing up, nobody was there to tell me that, you are less than me because you don't have blonde hair, right? So I actually grew up thinking that I'm beautiful. Right, I did. And it's just surprised me that my own niece, who looks a lot like me, like 99% like me, was growing up thinking that she's not beautiful, just because there was this blonde girl who was telling her that you aren't. And there was this teacher and there was this her lunch was being dumped in the garbage. And it just scares me for all the people out there. And I know that with time they gain their confidence back, they gain their self-esteem, and they realize that this is a problem. That's why you and me, we're having this conversation here, because you have realized it, that it's the problem with the society, it's the problem with the perception. But still, how difficult it is to erase the concept that you have built from childhood. They are so difficult to erase, because I would never ever think as a woman that oh, she's blonde and I'm not. I don't have that perception, because growing up I never had a blonde girl. And if there was a blonde girl, because there are some white Pakistanis over here, there was just one out of 100. So it never bothered me, my skin color. And I was like, my skin color, my hair color was just a part of me. And when I went to States, so when obviously you have that kind of resilience, and when you have that kind of resilience, and then you migrate, then you are migrating with your identity. Then you don't feel insecure, because you're secure in your identity. And those developing areas, when children do feel insecure about their identity, then that creates some really great issues. And in a bit I would like to discuss those. But how about you share some more experiences?
Another big one that took a toll on me. So I am starting with elementary school first. This went on well until high school. I will say this went on for years. But another instance in elementary school, and I think it's important. I think that one thing that I do want to highlight that you said was the developmental ages. So obviously the child is developing. They're figuring out their identity. They're trying to figure out who they are. And when they have those beliefs about themselves, it's so hard to break that barrier. And I think that that's what happens, is that there's always that doubt because they develop with that became a part of their identity, that as they're older, it's of course possible to eliminate. And I think therapy is definitely one big aspect that helps, but I think it's just so hard to get rid of those beliefs about yourself because you grew up believing that. Another instant that I want to share is, so this also had an impact on me for years, is that I was hairier than my fellow Americans, I would say. I had like hair on my arms and it was black. Now, obviously I was going through changes like every other child was, and everyone else's hair was blonde. Now, but my hair was black and it was visible. And I just so remember, I want to say this was 6th grade by now. And so, or no, it was definitely elementary school. It was sometime in elementary school, and some girl was like, why is there hair on your arms? Now, clearly, I could see that there was hair on her arms as well, but she simply denied it. I was just like, there's hair on your arms too. And she's like, no, it's not. You can't see it. Just straight out denied the fact. Denied it. And I was like, I can see it, though. And it was just something for years after that. Until high school, I would say, until high school, college, I would only wear long sleeve shirts when I was in school. Like, no matter how hot it was outside. And my mom would be like, why are you wearing that to school? Like, why are you wearing that? Why can't you put on a short sleeve shirt? It's like 80 degrees out. It's summer. And, like, summers can get hot in Connecticut. And we're kids. We're running around outside. And I would only wear long sleeve shirts. Because I was so insecure by it. And obviously, as I got older, you're not going to give a 13-year-old, or not a 13, you're not going to give an 8-year-old a razor to shave their arms with. So, like, eventually I did start doing that, like, when I was older. But it was more so of why I was doing that. It wasn't for self-care. It was to fit in. And I think that's where the issue comes from, is that I wasn't doing it out of self-care, or I wasn't doing it to just shave my arms. I was doing it because I didn't like that I had hair on my arms, which is a very normal human thing to have body hair. And so that was another factor that I had to work through. That was another thing, because I wore long sleeves for years and I think I just prefer long sleeves, but like sometimes it makes me question as to why I have this obsession with only wearing long sleeves.
Yeah, and even I remember, I mean, like, I know brown girls go through this. Even Italian girls, like, I've heard an Italian girl, and she said the same thing. I remember when I was working in US at the Psychophysiological Center, and there was this Italian girl, and she said the same thing. And she's like, I'm a little hairier than the rest of the Caucasians, and, I had a tough time in school. But even I remember Musa and Isa said the same thing, being brown boys. They said that, when they were growing up, when puberty hit them. So it's okay, I want to address, it's very, very normal for people who do not understand biology and anatomy and physiology. I mean, like, for people, this is very normal. Only kids do not have hair. People, hello. So if you have this concept that there are women without hair, so that's a liver failure. That's a sign of liver failure, because in liver failure, we are actually, as doctors, we are trained to see that, if someone do not have any hair on their body, then they probably are having a liver, problem with their livers. So anyway, so after puberty hits, people get hair, like even Caucasian females, get hair. The color of the hair is blonde, though, so it's really not visible. And same goes for the men. Even they're like, our Pakistani and Indian men appear very hairy. They are, and some of them aren't. Some of them aren't. To each its own. It completely depends on the genetics as well. But almost everyone has hair on their body. And Musa Isa said the same thing. They said that when puberty hit them, so they were starting to get mustache, and that mustache was black. So everyone was hit by puberty, and their mustache was like kind of blonde and brownish, and their mustache was like black, so it was very visible. So they were bullied because of it. And this is so sad, because kids wants to fit in. That's part of the development. And anyone who studies psychology or counseling, or they can actually talk about this, that kids wants to fit in. And if they start perceiving as something normal, very normal, like growing hair, they start perceiving it as abnormal, then you're kind of developing some real issues in that child, because then they'll start perceiving themselves as abnormal, and they'll start perceiving themselves, and this could be the beginning of, this could be the beginning of anxiety and other mental health disorders. So you really cannot do much about it except for then, developing resilience in your own kid and talking about these issues like we are on the podcast, so people can actually, even the Caucasians can teach their kids that you have to respect diversity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what one important highlight thing that you highlighted was that developmentally peer approval and peer relationships are really important to kids. And it's hard to break that. And I was actually just recently reading a book about it in which it says that sometimes what parents say and in the way they say it, it doesn't hold that effect on the kids as when their peers say it or their supposed, air quotes, friends say it, air quotes closed. Because they want that approval. They need that approval for their, and it's a part of development. It's something that you do. You build social relationships. And so it's just so hard because that was something that was addressed in the house. And it was like, oh, like everyone has hair on their body. And I'm like, well, you can't see theirs. Like it didn't matter what my parents said about the situation. And they would try to make it better and be like, well, you also have so much hair on your head. Like how would you get long hair and thick hair? And it just didn't matter because I didn't have that social approval from my peers.
Yeah, I understand, because kids do want their social approval. And yeah, I think you should send your kids to multicultural school, and you should one important thing is to educate parents, as like parents should be educated about these topics as well. So as you said, that immigrants, they move to US, they move to Canada, and I don't know, UK might have the same issues, but they move to these countries, and then they are completely unaware of these issues that kids face in school.
They're oblivious.
Yeah, they're oblivious. Yeah, true. So they have no idea, and then when the kids start going to the school, they start facing these problems, and they come home and discuss, and then parents are like, what does that happen, because they haven't experienced that. So they have, and then they start thinking that the child is either making a fuss about it, or exaggerating it, and they don't understand that how impactful these everyday scenarios are. So they need to understand that as well. And I really hope some of the parents are listening to this, and some of the parents who are also planning to migrate are listening to this. And I'm not asking them not to migrate, obviously, because there's a greater purpose there. But I'm asking them to educate themselves about the issues that their child could go through, and I'm asking them to please ensure that they are sending their kids to multicultural schools, and asking them to make an environment in their home that kid can actually come back and discuss it freely. All right. I really want to highlight some of the things that I faced as an immigrant as well. I would say that being a Pakistani, I have been very lucky that I didn't face discrimination in the university or at my workplace. I've been very lucky, and I know I'm the rare ones. I'm among the rare ones, and I've been really fortunate. Also, I think a part of it is because I was in Connecticut. And I started from the master's level, so I was already quite mature by the time I went to US. But I was really scared of the authority figures, and especially at the border, especially at the Canadian border. I don't know.
So immigration officers?
Immigration officers, yes. Okay. And immigration officers really gave me a tough time on Canadian border. And it's not a one-time thing. It happened almost every time. So my brother lives in Canada, and it was my aunt lives in Canada. So it was a very, it was a frequent thing for me to go to Canada, and I faced discrimination on the border, and to the point that one time, oh my God, he was so mean to me. He was asking me insane questions. Like, he said, I gave him my passport, and then he said, when is the last time you went to Pakistan? And I told him that around March or April. And then he says, like, he asked, like, March or April. And I was like, no, I don't remember. If I can have just my passport back, maybe I can just confirm. I was like, maybe I can see the exit stamp. And he's like, no, you don't remember? Is this even your passport? And I'm like, no, dude, I know it's March or April, but he was just being very, very mean and rude. And this was, this didn't happen the first time. And interestingly, this only happened when I was with my family. My family is brown, I'm brown, I have a Pakistani passport. Rest of my family had an American passport, but still it happened. So they're absolutely fine. Like, their mood is even absolutely fine. And the moment they receive the Pakistani passport, I don't know what gets into them. The devil awakens. And yeah, they become so rude and mean. And what was really sad, that this one time I went with my white friends to Canada, and they were so sweet. They were so sweet to us. And I was like, oh my God, is like, that's how they actually respond, like that's how they actually behave at border. I'm like, does this happen and I was like, so this is normal for you guys? And they were like, yeah, this is normal for us. And I was like, well, that's not normal for me, because nobody stirred me up and down, and nobody gave me rude looks, and nobody gave me mean looks. And okay, I'm not gonna, obviously, I don't want to sound narcissistic, but I'm a tiny and a pretty woman, right? A pretty and a tiny Pakistani woman, right? So I'm hardly a threat. I'm hardly a threat to anyone who sees me, right? I'm a 5 feet 4 inches girl, and I'm hardly a threat. But they're always so mean. They look at me like I'm gonna blast or something. Yeah, they look at me like that, and then they like check the car, and they should check the trunk. And when I went with my white friends, they didn't do anything like that. They were so sweet, Shumoel. It was heartbreaking. Like, when we crossed, actually I came home and cried. I cried because I was like, US is my second home. And I also stand when there's U.S. national anthem. I stand, and I'm a U.S. citizen now, and if U.S. has given me opportunities, I also have given everything to U.S. I'm a taxpayer citizen. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm a really good citizen. I'm a courteous citizen, right? And I wouldn't want to be treated that way. But sadly, still I have that on my passport, that I was born in Pakistan, and I do think that that would come up at the border. I do think. So that's what I faced.
Yeah, I think that this is a really deep-rooted issue in the US. And I think that a lot of people, not even just Desi Americans, even just people I talk to in general, I'd like post on my Snapchat story, going through TSA, and so many of my friends who weren't white would message me about it. They would say something. Everyone would have a story about it, about TSA, and then I know that we've talked about immigration officers so many times, and it's like, what is the problem? Like, what is the problem? And it'll happen whether you're traveling internationally, whether you're traveling domestically. In any instance, there's some issues with the authority, and I don't know what it is. They have some problem with the way we look. And it's just, I feel like something that we really, really should address here is how much worse it is for boys and men.
Yeah, that's why. Okay, so that's why I said pretty. That's what. Okay, so the reason I said pretty tiny and pretty, because I really wanted to highlight the fact, and I'm glad you said it, that it's really worse for men. It's really worse for Pakistani men, and I feel bad for Pakistani men, because my father, my brother, all these people I love are Pakistani men, and I feel so bad for them, because it is really bad for Pakistani men. They actually make their life quite hell at borders.
And it's just insane, because my brothers and I were born here, we're Americans, and I remember my youngest brother, I believe, or one of my brothers, they went and got passport pictures in which they had a bit of a beard, a mustache, and my mom, they got the passport pictures, they brought them home, and my mom's like, I'm not sending these. My mom was like, I'm not sending these pictures in for a passport, go retake them, shave your face, and go retake those pictures. And it's like, things like that other people don't have to think about. Like, they don't think about things like that. And we're born here. We have birth certificates here. We have passports here. And this just happened. So Musa and I were coming back from Pakistan. We were on a trip. We were coming back. We both have U.S. passports. We hand the immigration officer U.S. passports. And she turns and asks Musa, do you speak English?
Oh. gosh.
She
Like, you could
turns and
see
asks
the
him
American
if
passport.
he speaks English after handing her the American passports, and he's like, yes, I speak English.
In a perfectly American accent.
Like, yes, like, what? Like, I just am so confused as to why they do this. And so many times I see instances of men with beards. My brothers aren't allowed to travel with beards, actually. My mom will make them shave their faces before they travel. They are not allowed to travel with beards or mustaches. I see so many men just getting questioned because they have beards and mustaches for the longest time. So my dad has a really common Muslim name. He has the name Zafar. And for the longest time, we were talking about it the other day. He's just like, yeah, like, I'm surprised you guys got out so quick, because every single time he would come back from Pakistan, he would be questioned for 2 hours because his name was a Muslim name. It was normal. Like, it was normal for him. That was part of the routine.
And let me clarify, he is a U.S. citizen.
He is also a U.S. citizen. Yes, and he's been a U.S. citizen for, like, more than 20 years, probably.
Yeah,
in all
more than
honesty.
2
Like, he's
decades,
been in the U.S. Yeah, he's been in the U.S. for a really long time. He came here a really long time ago. And I hear these instances, and I still think, of course, with what we deal with, and then I think about all those instances of so many men that are in our families that we know, that we love, our friends, like, they just get pulled aside, they get questioned. Like, it doesn't matter if they're U.S. citizens or not. It's just the fact that they look like brown boys.
Yeah, no, they're disrespected, especially by the immigration officers. And there's this issue in US and the immigration officers. I mean, like, I'm gonna say it out loud, I hope this goes viral or something, but there is this issue, and US needs to attend to that issue, and especially the Canadian border, guys. Can you hear it? Canadian border, you guys need to replace those people and teach them some work ethics. And I don't know, do they teach them to discriminate? I do feel at this point that they teach them.
I don't know. I really don't know. And
I think they have this training, discriminatory training. So discriminate against
probably
brown people.
They need to reinforce some sort of training with the help of counselors and mental health counselors to ensure that doesn't happen. I understand that TSA has to have a certain persona of remaining stern, but that doesn't include discrimination. I was texting my friends while I was traveling to and from North Carolina. So I moved to North Carolina, and I fly back and forth a lot. And the things I'll tell them, I'll like text my friends and I'll be like, guys, I just got tested. My hands just got tested for traces of bombs. And they're like, your hands got what? And I was like, yeah, they pulled me aside and tested my hands for gun and bomb residue. Like, does that not happen to you guys? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean they pulled you aside and tested you? And on what, like, I don't know any other basis but the way that it's just so visible. It's just so visible that they do that.
And this is so sad. I remember my brother was pulled aside again at the Canadian-American border, and he started, the immigration officer started asking him questions, and then he went into the detail. So he's a Canadian citizen and US resident. So he was pulled aside and he was asked that, where do you live in Pakistan? And then he said it in DHA, like Defense Housing Authority. And you know how DHA is one of the best areas in Karachi, and obviously the immigration officer didn't know about that. And then he's like, oh, so it's a military area? So you're related to Pakistani military? And I'm like, oh my God, he's so ignorant. And he's trying to sound smart, but he just sounds, I'm sorry, like an censor. Like, I want to say it, but he's so ignorant. And I think part of the reason is as well that those immigration officers, I think they are very, very uneducated. I think they need to how in US you have to be educated enough for a particular job. I don't think the bar is really lower to be an immigration officer. I think so. No, I've Googled it, so don't worry about it. The bar is really low. So, they have to, I think, increase their standards. They need to.
Definitely. And I think we took a very light take on this, and just to get the conversation started, but I think what's important for us to talk about is how this can induce anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, so many people have travel anxiety to the point that they sometimes need medication before they can travel, or they get so stressed out, they get so anxious, and it has a toll on their health. Like, that's not okay. A person shouldn't be anxious to get on a plane and travel to another country. A person shouldn't be anxious before they're crossing the border to go see their family,
I'm
knowing
anxious,
that nothing
like,
is wrong.
to be very honest, whenever I'm entering US, either from Canada or either from the New York, New Jersey, whatever, from Pakistan to US, or from, I am anxious. I'm anxious. I'm a US citizen and I'm anxious because I know they're going to ask me questions just because my name is Karim, and I've been born in Pakistan, and I have brown skin. So they will question me, and I do feel anxious, and I think I'm 100% I'm not the only one, and I do think that men feel way more anxious than me, and this is really wrong because this shows that at the core of it, there's disrespect. There's still disrespect, even after talking so much about this topic, even after so much education, even a brown person, after so many brown people in the parliament, there's still disrespect at the core of it. And I don't know how we will actually get rid of that disrespect and replace that disrespect with respect. But I would want to talk about some of the things that we can do to curb our anxiety and to curb all the stress level that we face when we are traveling, or when we are facing bullyism in school, or racism or discrimination at work. So I would say that US, though it has all these problems, it's a great country because they hear your troubles. And if you're at a workplace, if you're at university, if you're at school, you should totally voice your problem. You should totally voice that there is racism, there is discrimination, and you should totally highlight that. So US is great in that in for example, in Pakistan, I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing either, like, even if you voice it, it doesn't matter, nobody would care about it. But in US, if you voice it, people would care about it, people would listen to you, people would, and the authorities will try to take an action, right? So I would say voice it, and that kind of gives you the power. B, make it like a discussion change. Even that's also part of voicing, but even a discussion change, starting a discussion change, making a Facebook group, talking to people about it, making a social support group, obviously taking therapy, and then being you could also join social support groups as well. Along with that, keep working on your self-esteem, like keep working on individually on your self-esteem, individually and collectively as well. There's nothing wrong with your identity, there's wrong with people's perception, right? There's nothing wrong with being a Pakistani, with being an Indian, with being a Bangladeshi. You should be proud of your heritage, you should be proud of coming from that culture. Yes, Pakistan has had its issues and problems, and that's why people are migrating. So many nations have had that problem. That's a global thing. Nations, they do better, they do well, then there are times when they're not doing well. There was a time when Egypt was the powerhouse of the world, but it's not anymore. That's how the world operates. So there's nothing wrong with your country not doing that well. You don't need to, you're not inferior to anyone if you're coming from a country that isn't doing that well. US is the land of immigrants. You have to realize that. So they are not being nice to you if they are giving you your rights. These are your rights. That's what US is about. US is about immigrants. And I think that's, if you realize that, that's what empowers you as well. When immigrants go there, they kind of like feel, oh my God, these are the native people. Look, I'm the immigrant, so maybe I need to, give that right up. No, not at all. Because all these people are immigrants, right? And so, if they don't have a right to discriminate against you. Also, I think we have to be just collectively really proud of our culture and our background. We have to be proud of these black hair. We have to feel proud of the black eyes, and we have to feel proud of our beauty, of our cultural beauty, of our cultural intricacies, and our family values. And I think that's one way, if you feel really proud of that. I'm not saying that, think that your culture is superior to any culture. It's not. But obviously do not think that you are inferior to anyone just because of your identity, or just because you come from a country where there's a lack of opportunity and you came for opportunity. So if you came to US for opportunity, if you came to UK, Canada, Australia, I don't care, anywhere for opportunity, because you didn't have that opportunity in your country, don't feel ashamed of it. You are also giving something to that country. So as an immigrant, when you are taking that opportunity, you are also giving your energy, your value. You're adding that value to your country, to that country. And I would say, to understand your value at an intrinsic level, at a collective level, and then valuing that addition could be great for your to add to the resilience against discrimination. What do you say?
Definitely. Yeah, I think you highlighted some really important points of that. Talking about it, talking to other people about it, voicing your opinions, those are definitely important things that you can start with, and truly understanding that you should be proud of who you are as a person and your identity. And it's hard. We're not saying that it's easy. It's a difficult thing to do. But if you're continuously working on that and continuously working on yourself, it will definitely have a positive effect on you.
100%, 100%. It was such a great conversation. Thank you, Shumoel. And
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tamazur. It's been fun speaking with you about this today.
All right, and I hope you guys are also having fun listening to this. So why don't you guys leave a comment below and add to the discussion, because we would really love to know what do you think and what do you have to say about this.
Definitely. We would love to hear your opinions. We would love to hear what you guys want to hear us talk about next. And thank you for listening to Mindful Over Mindless. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.